Hey, what's going up? What's going on, guys? I'm gonna wait a little bit longer until we get some more people in here, just so we don't have to catch up. But for those of you that,
hey, what's going up?
hang on just a second. I'm gonna wait a little bit long. For those of you that are in here, I wanted just to do like a 101 class for the people that really don't know anything about Giants. So if you do know some things about Giants, this probably is not going to be the video you're going to want to watch. It'll be kind of boring. Hey, what's going on, Haz? But anyways, with that said, the reason I wanted to do this video live was to see what your guys' levels really truly are, to see like how basic we need to start these tutorial videos at, and if we can get away with skipping some things, then we will, and if we kind of have to start at the very basic beginning, then we'll start at the beginning. So, and also I do want to say that you know, with it being live and everything, it's going to be kind of goofy how we do it, but the other part of this is that, you know, this is how I do it. This isn't I'm not trying to say like I'm an expert or that I know everything about Giants Editor, because I don't, but I just wanted to kind of show you how I work in Giants Editor and some of the tricks I've learned. So you know, for those of you that don't really get it, then this will be the one for you. But yeah, Mark, you've never used GE. Awesome. Mark, do you have GE? Does anybody not have Giants Editor installed? Because that's going to obviously be step one. Also, for you guys, I'm going to try to shoot for an hour. I think tutorial videos, you don't want to make them too long, and we don't want to be, you know, too confusing for people. So we'll go ahead and try to keep it to an hour. That way we're not pumping too much stuff into your guys' heads. So Mark, in order to get Giants Editor, you're going to want to go, you're going to want to Google Giants Editor. It's going to bring you up to the Giants Developer Network website, GDN, and you're going to have to sign up with an account there. And once you do sign up with an account, you'll be able to go to the download section of that website and download Giants Editor. So I would try to do that here real quick so you can kind of follow along. If you learn like me, you're going to want it. Dirty, you've been working on your own map. Awesome. So you're probably going to, you know, maybe learn some things, but probably not on this one, because it's going to be really, really, really simple. I just want to kind of help people that have no idea how to use Giants with maps and get them started. So you're more than welcome to watch, but you might be a little bored. Alrighty, I'm just going to give it some time to see if we could get some more people in here, but I don't want to wait too long because we're only going to be in here for an hour at the most. So and for those of you that are watching later, obviously you can kind of skip forward through this part, but Carson, you have no idea how to paint, or you do know how to paint and place things, but no clue how to get it to work in game. You added 2 fields. Dirty, we'll definitely get to that, but probably not in this video. This video is going to be, like I said, really, really basic. So for those of you that know a little bit, you're not going to like this video. But I do want to start at the beginning so everybody gets a chance to know. And if you do have any questions or anything like that, let me know in the live chat. But with that said, I'm not going to try to deviate too far from the general idea of this, because there are going to be people watching it later, and I want them to be able to understand it. So if that makes sense, hopefully for you guys. So what I do, I guess what we can start with, I'll just talk about a couple things here for those of you that are really, really new to this. So first of all, when you're opening up something in Giants, it's definitely got to be unzipped. So when you get your map file or whatnot, you can use anything, just like a normal, your normal maps. So like if I go to my mods folder, this is going to be UMRV Beta 2. This is the map that I'm working on right now, obviously the one that you guys are all familiar with. Now you can use different unzipping tools, whatnot. 7-zip is good. I use this one. I don't even remember what it's called, but you're going to want to have some sort of program to extract it. So when you find that zip file, I can just go ahead and unzip it to its own folder. This is obviously going to take a while, but when it does unzip, you're going to have a folder with everything inside. Cody, when will the link be updated for what? For the map? It'll be updated soon, if that's what you're getting at. Now obviously some maps are going to be bigger and some are smaller, so it can take a little while to unzip it. It also can take a while to open it. So yeah, Cody, it'll be updated here soon. We want to make sure that we get it all set up ready for you guys, so that there's not a bunch of problems with it. One of the big problems is that it seemed like the upload got corrupted somehow, and so you guys were getting a map that was missing a lot of textures and things. And if you can see from the videos, if you've ever watched my videos, they weren't missing textures. So somehow it got corrupted in the upload. There was also some triggers that got moved around and stuff, and we wanted to clean it up a little bit. And while we were at it, we figured, hey, let's just add the things that we're working on to it. So it'll be soon, within a couple days. Mark, were you able to find the Giants Development Network, GDN? Cody, thanks, man. So we're almost unzipped here. I already have this open in another folder, but the reason we're waiting is I wanted to actually show you guys, what it looks like, and also just allow some more time to get some people in here. Mark, you got it. Alright, man. So it might take you a little while to install it, but hopefully you can catch up to us. Awesome. It's not a very big program, so it should open up fairly easy. So once you unzip it, you're going to get, just a regular folder. It's going to look something like this. They all might be, maps can be in different formats. Some people call these files different things. For instance, when I click on maps, that's going to bring me to all of my map files, and some people will call, in mine I usually call them new models, but some people will call these imports or models. But you can just kind of play around and find the ones you're looking for. This is going to be where all the buildings are imported into and things like that from other maps. But the file that we're really going to focus on is this yellow icon, and that's going to be your i3D file. I'll blow this up a little bit. So it's going to say i3D file format, and this is what you really are going to be focused on when you're using Giants Editor. The only other program that I would recommend would be Notepad++. There are times where you're going to be using Notepad++ to edit the i3D and also edit some of the XML files. So you're definitely going to want to have Notepad++ installed on your computer. It's free. Just Google it. You'll be able to find the link for it. It's pretty easy and simple to install. It's just like a Notepad basically program, a text program, but it's pretty easy to work with. I'll just open it up and show you. Country Fish, yeah, definitely. Some people with low-end computers aren't going to be able to open large maps in GE. Although that's definitely true. I have noticed that, even on my map, if I open it on a low-end computer, it still opens. It just takes a little longer. So, sometimes you just have to be patient and give it some time. It can take 5 minutes to open some of these maps. So anyways, this is what the i3D file looks like in Notepad++, and I know most of you are going to be saying, yeah, that's gibberish, but it's actually fairly easy to read once you get the hang of it. But we're going to close that for now because we don't need to, what we're doing today, we're not going to need it. Alright, so basically when you open up your map 01 folder or file, this i3D file. It may not be called map01. It could be called anything, really, anything you want to name it. But typically on a Giants map, most people stick to this name. So you're going to see it being called your map01. And you're just going to double click it. It's going to give you the option to open it in whatever Giants you wish. I still have some older Giants editors installed, and that's for my own reasons. But really what you're going to be worried about is the new one, which is actually 7.1. I'm using 7.0 still, but that's okay. And then if you're opening like a 15 map, you're going to need a Giants Editor 6. Usually 6.0.5 is the one you're going to want to go with to open up a Giants or an i3D file that's in 15. So if I were to open up a Giants or a FS15 file with this new Giants, sometimes it'll open, sometimes it won't, and it'll crash. And if that's the case, then you're going to want to try to open it in 6. So when I double click this, what I'm actually going to get is Giants Editor is going to pop up. And actually we will, oops, I was not actually trying to load that, but that's fine. So like if we had opened my map, it'll open up eventually to look like this. Now it's going to take several minutes to load, and if you do click anywhere on the screen, like this is the one that's loading, if I were to click anywhere in here, sometimes you'll get a message that'll pop up saying Giants Editor stopped responding. Just hit cancel and just let that load. It doesn't mean that it's actually frozen, it just means that it's still loading up. But eventually you'll get to a point where you're going to be looking at the map from this angle. Trevor, oh no, complicated stuff. Yeah, that stuff's complicated. We won't get into that right now. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a general idea of what Notepad++ looks like. So anyways, you're going to unzip the file. Remember I said it has to be unzipped, and then you're going to open it up into Giants. You're going to want to use the newest one, 7.1. To move around the map, you're going to notice that your mouse moves freely, right? So in order to actually move the view, you're going to hold down the Alt button on your keyboard and then click with your left mouse button, and you can actually drag the screen. So I am holding down the Alt button and I'm moving the mouse left and right, and it's going to give me a left and right view. If I wanted to go up and down, same thing. I've got to basically click the mouse and drag whichever direction you want to go. Now at first this is really confusing, but after a while you get the hang of it. Now to move backwards and forwards across the map, you're going to want to hold down the right mouse button and the Alt key on your keyboard. So I'm moving the mouse forward, moving the mouse backwards, and it's zooming me in and out. Now you'll eventually get the hang of it to where you can move around this map like a crazy man, and you're basically just using a series of drags to get yourself around. So I'm just dragging the whole time. I'm holding down the Alt key on the keyboard, and I'm just clicking the right mouse button, dragging and letting go each time I do this. So it eventually gets you to move around, and I realize it's going to be complicated at times, or kind of goofy to get the hang of, but eventually you will be able to move around it like a pro. So with that said, there are some other ways to move around, and there's some ways to move around quicker. If you notice, actually, let me move this up a little bit. Okay, so down here at the bottom right, you're going to see nav speed. Right now mine's set at 50. There's a plus and minus key. So down here at the bottom right where my mouse is, hopefully you guys can see the mouse. But on the bottom right corner of the screen, you're going to see nav speed. Now if I take my numpad on the keyboard and I hit the minus or the plus keys, that's actually going to change. So as you can see right now, I'm moving it up, and I'll just move it up to like 90 just to kind of show you guys. So now that it's at 90, when I move around the map, it's going to move me way quicker than it did before when I'm going forwards and backwards. I think when you first load Giants for the first time, it's set way low. It's like 15 or something. And just to give you guys an example, here's 10. I'm going to have to click to even barely move, and see how it's just kind of inching along. So if I were working on something that was really close and I needed to just move just a little bit, like here and there, really up close to something, I would want this nav speed to be down low. Because if I turn this thing to 90 by hitting the plus key, I'm going to move it back up to 90 and try to move around this little object, and see I'm going, just barely moving the mouse is making me move way far away and in and out. So you're definitely going to want to slow this down at times with the minus key, and now I can really easily just kind of move right up in here and look at the details. So if that's something, if you're working on an object where you really need to get close, turn it down. If you're working on a map and you don't want to have to sit there and take 5 minutes to get across it, like I am right now at 5, I'm going to zoom that up. And what I typically do is I usually have it around 50 or 60. That's usually the setting I have it on most of the time, and now I can move around really quickly and get around the map. So that's the movement around the map. Moving, there's one more way that you can move. I don't prefer this way. It kind of confuses me. But if you click on an object way out in the distance, we're going to click on this, and I hit the F key, it's going to bring me right to it. So if you really need to zoom across the map, you can do this, although sometimes it's kind of hard to see what you're clicking on. But if I hit the F key, it brings me right to it. So that is one way you can zoom across the map. I'll just show you guys one more time. I'm going to click on this little granary building over here. I'm going to hit the F key, and it's going to bring me right to it. This is also convenient if you lose something. Like for instance, you can't see it, because if you have your distance set way low on something, see how things start to disappear when I get far enough away? Now that same building is gone, and if for whatever reason I can't find it, I can always go up to the scenograph and click on it up here and then hit F, and it'll bring me right to it. Or let's say you know something like I'm looking for the all fruit silo. So let's say I know what this is and I'm looking for it. I can highlight it up here. I can hit the F key. It's going to bring me right to it. So that also can help you when you get places. Dirty saying right click WASD. Yeah, you can definitely do that, although for me that just confuses me, I guess. You can do that, and you can also hold down the shift key, the left shift key, and it'll zoom you forward quicker. So like right now I'm holding down the right mouse button and I'm hitting W. It's going to move me forward, and then if I hold down shift, it'll move me quicker. And some people might like this because it'll remind you of actually moving around in games, but for me it gets all choppy and confusing, and I don't know why. I just don't prefer it. So you can move around several different ways in the map. So we went over the speed, the nav speed down at the bottom, the moving with all the various different ways you can move. Is there anybody that has any questions so far? Mark, how's that download coming for you? If there's no questions, we'll move forward a little bit. And thank you for all the people that are watching. Hopefully you guys will learn some stuff. And again, for those that have just joined us, this is like literally the 101 class. This is the very beginning class. You know, how to get through the map, how to open it, how to move around, those things. I'm not going to get into anything too complicated tonight. Lee, what's up, man? I'll jump in there and talk to you guys later, dude. That phone call got me a little sidetracked, so I had to jump in here before it got too late. Alright, so let's start talking about some objects, because that's what people are mostly going to be doing in Giants Editor. So pretty much everything on the map is an object. It usually has its own i3D file, at least when it's in its infancy stage. But anything that you can click on, I'm going to refer to as an object, and it just basically means that you can move it around. You could also call it a transform group, because anything up here in the scenograph this is basically every single thing that you have on your map. And a transform group is basically, you can think of it like a file structure. So I can actually expand these, and anything below it is part of this object. So like this sign, let's use that F key to find it. It's going to pop me here. So it's the Manning Transportation sign. Now within this Manning Transportation sign, there's a couple different pieces. There's a pole. And it takes a little while to load up because this map has got a lot of stuff on it. And then there's the sign. So if I wanted to, say, move the sign around because it's in the wrong spot, it's off center or something, I can come up here to the gizmo, which is what I call it. It's got these little arrows going in various directions, and I would actually just grab and hold whichever arrow I wanted to move it. So if I want to move it this way, I would grab the red arrow. If I want to move it back left, same thing, grab the red arrow. And you can tell when you're doing this because it'll actually highlight yellow, and that means that once I click the mouse, I'm going to be able to move it. Now I can do the same thing for up and down, and I can do the same thing for forwards and backwards. Now I can also spin the object in either way using the two round circles, I guess is what you call them. Now if at any time, let's say I move something and I'm like, oh man, I don't want it over here and I didn't mean to do that, you can just hit Control Z, or you can come up here and hit the undo button, and it's going to move me back one step, and I'm going to actually move it back again because I rotated it forward a little bit. And again, I can come up here and do it up here as well. Now let's say the sign is okay, but I want to move the entire object. Now if I only have the sign highlighted, obviously I'm only going to move the sign, and if I have the pole highlighted, I'm only going to move the pole. So if I want to move this entire sign, I need to click on the highest, the parent object in that transform group. It doesn't matter, this can be either open or closed, but now that I've got the parent object highlighted, it's going to reload my gizmo to a different location, but now I can move the entire thing. And so if I want to move it a little bit closer to those bushes and get it kind of hidden, I can move it around, I can rotate the entire thing, and it's actually going to rotate on the axis here. So wherever your gizmo's at is where it's going to rotate. And we'll get into resetting the gizmo in a later video, but typically most objects are set at 0. Can you show us how to change the direction of the train and on the foliage layer, or the foliage channel? I will maybe get into some of that tonight, but I'm not going to get into it right now, just because I want to make sure the people that are brand new to this get a chance to actually learn this step by step. So that's how you move an object. Pretty simple. There's another way that you can do it. If I have this entire object selected, and let's say I want to move it, like right now it's highlighted, let's say I want to move it way over here, and I don't want to have to sit there and drag and drag and drag these arrows, because it can get kind of confusing, especially if you're this far away. I can actually hit Control B, and once you hit Control B, wherever I click the mouse next, it's going to pop it down. So it's moved it back here. We're going to go ahead and undo that just to move it back, and I'll show you guys one more time. And right now it's actually just loading up this other map, so it's getting a little goofy on us. So we'll go back in here. Sometimes it'll take a little while to load, and that's just because I'm on this map. It's got a lot of objects. I could get rid of some things to show you, but we're actually going to go to a different map anyways here in a second. That's not going to take so long, but I'm just kind of showing you guys with the objects here. Justin, what is the box above the arrow? Okay, so these boxes here are scaling boxes. So as you can see, if I click on this box and scale it, I'm moving the mouse to the left, it's going to scale it down. Move it to the right, and sometimes it'll get a little goofy, it's going to scale it up. I can also come here into the center, and it's going to scale every direction at the same time. So if I wanted to like make it smaller, I'm moving the mouse to the left. If I wanted to make it bigger, I'm moving the mouse to the right. And it's basically just increasing the size of everything. So if your sign comes in this small and you're like, yeah, that's way too dinky, I want to make this thing bigger, you can come in here and make it larger. So those are scaling boxes, and you can actually also do those up here in your transform on the attributes box. Anything that says scale, like scale X, Y, Z, that's going to be the actual numbers that correspond with the size. So each one of these are on a different axis. So like if I move this one up and down, you're actually going to see, well, it's the translate because I'm moving it, but this would be like the translate y-axis. So if I wanted to scale it on the y-axis, you're going to actually see that number shrink and get bigger right here on my scale. So I could also come in here, let's say I know that I want to scale it to 1. I can come in here and just type 1, and I want to scale the X to 1. I can actually go through here and scale every one of these to 1, 1, 1, and that's going to give me this the scale of X1, Y1, Z1. Sometimes this is easy if you want to like make everything the same size. I can come in here and let's say I want to make it half the size. So I'm going to come in here and do 0.5 on each of them, and now my sign is exactly half the size that it started out as. Robert, hey, how's it going? Robert, I'm not going to get into field definitions right now, man. I apologize for that, but I don't want anyone to get confused, and this is really the beginner class. We will get into some of those other things in the future, but I don't want to confuse people. So this is really the bare bones how to operate Giants Editor class. Country apparently lost his power there. Alright, so moving objects, it's actually pretty simple. Some people like the old school way, and they just literally drag this thing around until they get it all the way over to wherever they want it. But typically I don't do that. So if I want to move something way across the map, I'm going to hit that Control B, click on the map, and you're going to actually see it pop up here. I gotta wait for my computer to catch up to me here. It's loading everything up. Like I said, this map is really intense for this kind of stuff, so I still can't move. There we go. So now my sign is where I clicked the mouse out here in the middle of the field. So if you're wanting to move stuff really far, that's the easiest way that I've found to do it. And again, like I said, for the people that are just joining, I'm no expert in this. I'm not an expert Giants editor by any means. I'm just showing you how I do it. There could be a better way. There could be a more correct way. This is how I learned, and this is how I know how to do it. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. All right. So let's say we want to make another one of these signs. And actually, first, I'll actually show you how to import and export things, because we'll export this sign out to another map, and that'll make it easier for us to work with it because it won't be so slow. And then I'll show you guys how to do duplications and all that kind of stuff. And we'll teach you transform groups and things too. Alright, so let's say you guys have an object on a map that you'd really like to put on your map. So you're in the UMRV map and you're like, hey, this sign would be perfect on my map. And I want to take this sign and bring it to my map the easiest way possible. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to click on it, and normally when you click on it, it's not going to bring up the entire transform group. It just brought up sign. So be careful and make sure you're selecting the entire thing that you want to bring. So I'm going to need to go up to the parent object, select sign. That's going to now highlight everything. And now once I'm here, if I want to bring this into another map, I'm actually going to go to File, Export Selection with Files. So again, make sure everything's highlighted. Come up here, File, Export Selection with Files. I'm going to click that. It's going to give me a location. Now for me, we're going to bring it to this new map that we're working on. So this is going to be the new map project that I'm working on. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's going to go in the right place. So when I find my folder, I'm going to bring it into this one like we talked about earlier. This is the kind of the hierarchy of the files. Normally this is going to be under maps, but it could be different on your map that you're making. But I'm going to go into maps and then new models. Like I told you guys, some people call this models, some people call it imports. For me, it's always been called new models. That's what I like to call it, so I remember it. So I'm going to click in new models, and now right now I only have 2 folders in here. So I'm going to want to put this in its own folder within this folder. So I'm going to right click, new folder, and we're just going to call this man sign. Now I've heard differing opinions on this, but you really should keep your files without spaces. And if you do have to make a space, like say we wanted, for whatever reason, we wanted to put a space in between man and sign, make sure you do an underscore and then sign. For some reason, Giants can get confused. If you were to make this like man sign with a space, that can actually get things confused. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to just leave it without a space. We're going to call it man sign, and then I'm going to need to make sure that saved the name. I'm going to click on this man sign folder, and now I'm going to come in here, and this is what you're going to name your actual i3D file. So this is what we're going to actually call this sign. It can be named whatever you want. I'm going to just call it man sign again. I'm going to click save. It's going to ask me, do you want to get the parent directory structure? I always hit yes. It's the easiest way to work with this. So you're going to hit yes, and now it's going to do the work for you. It's going to pull this out of your map, and it's going to import it into that new file. I've already got this map open. This is my new map project. So I'm going to come in here, and let's say that we want to place this sign right in this vicinity. This is, again, we're going to have to open this map up, a new i3D. You know, you're going to go through the whole steps of opening up the map. And once you're in your screen, I'm going to go to File, and now I'm going to hit Import, since I want to import something into this map. It's typically Giants Editor is going to bring you up to the last one that you just did, and it kind of communicates with itself. So if you have both of these maps open, and when you do the export from the old map, it's going to automatically bring you to the one you just moved in. And now I can go back a couple steps just to show you guys. You know, it's the same place that we went: Maps, New Models, Man Sign. There's the Man Sign. So usually it brings you right back here, and then all I have to do is double click on Man Sign, because that's the object we want to bring in, and it's going to automatically insert it in your map. You also notice right here it shows up now in your scenograph. It might not put it where you want it. It's actually, typically when it comes into your map, it's going to be right at 0, 0, 0. So basically dead center in the map. That's where it'll import into. Now obviously I don't want this Man Sign to stay at that position, so if I wanted to move it back over here again, we can go through those same steps. I can either try to drag it with the arrows and get it all the way over here, or I can hit Control B, click the mouse, and it's going to pop it right where I want it. And now I can sit here and move it around, do what I want to do with it. I can get it, you know, the fine-tune type stuff. I can drag it exactly where I want it. And you know, if it's too big, we talked about scaling, so I can come over here and say, well, I really want it to be half the size. I'm going to scale these all down to 0.5. It's too high, so I'm going to drag it down a little bit, and we're going to make this, you know, just a little like driveway entrance sign. So you can do this with any object on any map. Any questions on moving or on exporting objects from a map to another? If there is, I'll gladly go back and actually, yeah, why don't we do that one more time just to kind of show you guys. I'm going to move a bridge from this map over, and we'll set it up on this road that's going over the river. So let's say we want to move this bridge from the UMRV map, and we want to, wrong one. We want to put it on this map right here where the road is going across, right? So I'm going to start off with the map open, with both maps open. I'm going to find the object that I want. I'm going to click on it. And now remember, you want to come over here to your scenograph and make sure that the whole thing is highlighted. Right now it's only going to, if I were to export right now, I'm actually only going to export this piece of it, which could be fine, but I might want the deck. We'll see. We'll click on it and see what it is. So the deck is actually the road. So if I want this road texture to come with me, I'm going to need to make sure I'm clicking on the parent object, and everything will be highlighted. So let me reset that to where it was. So I'm going to click on the parent object, bridge 148 feet. Once it's all highlighted, I'm going to come up here to File, Export Selection with Files. Now it's going to bring me back to that same folder I was in, so what I'm going to do is go back a step to New Models. I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to just call this Bridge 48 feet. I'm going to open up the Bridge 48 feet, and we will go to Bridge 48. We'll call it Bridge 48 feet for the i3D. Click Save. Remember, you want to, when it asks you, do you want to get the parent directory structure? Yes. Now I can come back into my old map. I'm going to go to File, Import. It's going to bring me right back to that same one I was just in. Double click on Bridge 48 feet. You guys saw it just add to my scenograph here. And if I look around, it's going to be in some random place. So it actually imported it in way down here under the train. So to get it moved back to where I want it, I'm going to go back to the road here. I'll hit Control B and get it close. And then I'm going to use these XYZ controls and the rotation controls to get it exactly lined up with how I want it in the map. And since I already have this road here, it's going to actually make this a little confusing. So for the time being, I'm going to drag this road out of the way a little bit, and this road out of the way. I'll click on here, go to make sure that my entire transform group is selected, and now I can come in here and actually line it up perfectly with my lines, and now I have a bridge. It's not perfect. Normally I'd probably have it a little more centered, and I would add some other objects to it, but I can kind of play around and now move these to the right spots. And there you go. I now have a bridge set up. So it's pretty simple, pretty easy. Now if I wanted to, let's say, duplicate this bridge, let's say there's another spot on the map where I want another bridge to be similar to this bridge. I don't have to go import a new one. I could come back up here and go to File, Import, and import this exact same bridge, but it's actually easier just to, again, select it, make sure I've got my entire transform group selected, and then you can either come up here to edit, duplicate, or you can just hit Control D. Now if you hit Control D, it's now going to actually load another one. So if you can see in the scenograph, now we have two bridge 148 feet, but they're in the exact same position. They're actually right here together. So I want to make sure that the one that I just duplicated, which would be the bottom one, is selected, and now I can go ahead and grab this and move it wherever I want. So if I want to bring it over here to a different spot where it's going to cross the river, I can hit Control B, click the mouse, and I can get this thing set up to be another bridge. And I'm going to move it around and fine tune it exactly how I want to move it with the up, down, left, right, or the rotation part of the gizmo. If you ever need to delete an object, you can just come, if it's highlighted, I could just hit the delete key and it'll delete it. Or I can come over here to the bridge 148, select it, hit my delete key, and it disappears. It's going to go away. Why is the object white when you import it? I know it's missing textures, just don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so Justin, what you're doing is you're actually not importing it in the correct sequence. That's usually what happens. So, like for instance, if I want to move this sign and I go to File, Export, if I don't hit Export Selection with Files, if I only hit Export Selection, it's only going to bring the shape of this over, but it's actually not going to bring all the files associated with it. So I'll actually show you guys real quickly. I'm going to have to get out all these. So if I go to my new map project, we're going to go down to Maps, we're going to go to New Models, and we're going to go look at this bridge that I just brought over. So when I brought this bridge over, because I selected export with the selected files, it actually brought over this folder here with it. Now this folder, it's going to be really long on this one, which I'll actually go over here in a second on how to shrink these down. It actually brought the textures with it. So now if I had selected just import selection and I didn't have it bring the files with it, I would have not gotten these two files. And so Giants Editor, when it's trying to load up how this thing is supposed to look, how the bridge is going to look, it's not going to know what colors to paint everything because it's not going to have the associated texture files with it. And that's why it's always recommended that when you're doing this, you export the object directly out of a map into a new map, and you want to make sure that you're doing export selection with files. And for this one, we'll just go ahead and click the same one because we know it's the same object. And then when you get this, yeah, we'll go ahead and replace it because it's the same thing. When you get this box that pops up, do you want to get the parent directory structure? Click yes, because if you don't do this, you might screw up something with your file structure later on. So I'm going to click yes, and it's going to bring it over to the man sign folder that we set up, which again is going to have a long file path, and I'll go through these real quick. And see, now I've got the man sign logo, and I've got the color that the pole's supposed to be and the color that the sign's supposed to be. If these files didn't come with, then we would have lost all of our textures, and we would be looking at a blank object on this map. This would have just came in blank, or the sign would have just came in white pole, white sign, white everything. Now, sometimes Giants Editor knows how to read the texture files, but the game doesn't. And so, let's say I export this to my desktop. If I export this to my desktop, and then import it into my map, Giants is still going to be able to read the file path. It's going to know that the Manning Transportation logo is saved on my desktop, and so in Giants it's going to show up, and we're going to be able to see it. But then later on, when I zip this map up and I bring it back into the game, it's going to lose that file path, because now that it's zipped, it's basically locked up into a vault, and the game isn't going to know to look for look at your desktop for the files. So it's going to have to look in that zip file itself, and it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, there isn't a desktop folder, and there isn't those files aren't there, and so it's going to pop it up white, and in your map you're going to see an error. You're going to see an error in the log saying that it can't find the Manning Transportation logo, or the black and the white. So make sure you always bring it in from one map to another map. So again, I'm just going to walk through it one more time. I know it's redundant, but if I want to bring this bridge over, I want to make sure that everything is selected in that transform group if I want every single object. Now let's say I just wanted the deck, then it'd be fine if I just had the deck highlighted and I went to File Export. But for the sake of this tutorial, if you want to bring everything over with it, you're going to want to make sure the parent group is selected, go up to File, Export Selection with Files, give it a location in the new map, make sure that these files are actually in your new map project, or whatever you called it. Click Save. It's going to bring that box up asking if you want to bring over, if you want to use the parent directory. Click Yes, and then it'll bring everything with it. So Justin, did that answer your question? Hopefully that got you somewhere. So I'm assuming what you did is you probably either didn't select everything with the files, or you maybe saved it to the desktop or saved it to the wrong folder. Justin, absolutely, man. That's why I'm here doing this, so no problem. Anybody else have any questions about objects and how to import and export? Sometimes people ask, why can't we just copy and paste? Because like I could select this and hit copy and paste, but if you want this structure right here to copy and paste with all of the files associated with it, then you're going to want to make sure that you actually duplicate it and move it to wherever you want to move it. What about objects that are downloads? Dirty, I'm assuming you're, like, say you download this bridge, is that what you're saying? Like if you downloaded this bridge online and you want to import that into your map? I'll let him catch up to me here. I'm a little bit ahead of you guys, so the messages come in a little late. But again, thanks for everybody that's watching. We got 25 people in here. Hopefully we're getting you some questions answered. Again, this is like the basic class, so I'm not going to get into anything too detailed. Exactly. Okay, so Dirty, if we let's say we downloaded this from the internet. I'm going to actually show you real quick what this would look like. So I'm going to export this to my desktop just for the sake of this tutorial. So we're going to give it a new folder. Now you guys obviously aren't going to want to do this, but I'm just going to set this up and make it look like a download. Okay, so when you download an object from the internet, let's say it's this bridge, it's going to come in a zip file. You're going to unzip it, and then you're going to get this folder here. It's going to have your i3D, your i3D shapes, and typically, well, it should have your textures, which are going to be in another folder. Now, it might be called textures, it might be called whatever, but it's going to have a folder here with your textures in it. Now, this obviously isn't in a map, but I can still open this i3D file in Giants. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to open it, double click on it. I'm going to open it in the latest Giants. You guys should have 7.1. And what it's actually going to do is it's going to bring up Giants Editor, but it's just going to be the map, or just the bridge. Now, this is very common when you open up something. I've just got this gray screen, and everybody's going, hey, wait a minute, where's my bridge? It's not here. And sometimes you can see it in the distance, like I can, but other times you'll be scrolling around and you're like, there's nothing here. It's just gray screen. So what you're going to want to do is come up here to your scenograph. I'm going to click on bridge. See how I can't see it? I've just got a gray screen. And I'm going to do the same thing I taught you guys earlier. Make sure it's selected, hit the F key on your keyboard, and it's going to bring me right to it. So if something is hidden and you can't see it, like for instance, we could change the draw distance of this. So I could, right now it's set really high. Let's say I set this to 50. Now, as soon as I get far enough away, it actually disappears. So let's say this was set at 50 when you downloaded the map, or downloaded the bridge, and you come in like this, and you're going, hey, wait a minute, I'm scrolling around, I don't see anything. I can select it here, hit F, it's going to bring me close enough to see it. I'm going to bring this back up high enough that we can actually not lose it again. So, again, we're now just looking at the object. We don't have the actual map behind us, but we're going to go through the exact same steps. I'm going to come up here and make sure everything's selected. Going to go to File, Export Selection with File. I'm going to find my new map project. I'm going to bring up the maps file, or folder, sorry, and I want to put it in new models. Now you guys can put this wherever you want. I could put this right here if I wanted to. I could create a new folder and I could call it bridge. The only problem with this is that eventually, after you've done this 100 times, you're going to have 100 folders in here, and it's going to be a little hard to figure out what's where. That's why I always put it in another folder. So I like new models, that's where all of my imports are going to be. But let's just, for the sake of this, let's use this bridge folder. It's blank. So I'm going to come up here, or come down here to the file name. I'll type in bridge. Hit save. It's going to ask me, do you want to get the parent directory? Yes. And now if I open that file back up, sorry, that's the wrong one. So I want to go back to my maps. You'll see, nope, that's the wrong one too. So on my new map project, I'm going to go to maps. Now all of a sudden I have this new folder bridge. Click on it. There's my 3D. Here's my textures. And again, this file path is really long and it shouldn't be, and I'll show you guys that in a second. But there's my textures for it. So now if I wanted to bring this one into my map, it's obviously going to be the same bridge, but let's say I want to bring in the new bridge that I just downloaded from the internet. I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Import. I want to make sure that I'm in that bridge folder. So here we are in the bridge folder that we just set up, and I'm going to click this i3D. It's going to load it somewhere random on the map. I don't even see it. Well, actually it probably put it right here. Yeah, it did. Sometimes it will do that if it's the same object. So this is my new one that I just downloaded from the internet. This is the one that we exported from my map, but they're the exact same. So hopefully that answered that question and made some sense with it. And you can do that with a bunch of different things. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be one object at a time. Let's say I want to go to the Upper Mississippi River Valley map, and let's say I want to import an entire town. Let's do a farm. It might be a little bit easier to do a farm. So let's say I like this farm layout and I like all the buildings on it, and I don't want to have to do this one object at a time. I can select one of the buildings, just get something selected. This is going to be outer walls. That's what I just clicked on. Now let's say I want to bring this entire map, or this entire farm, sorry. I'm going to need to go up here to the parent file, or the parent transform group for that farm. So right now that wall that I just selected is in a child format of the shop. If I select shop, it's going to light the entire shop up. But let's say I don't want just the shop, I want everything. Well, then I need to come up here and look, okay, this is all on farm 2. So now when I select on farm 2, it's going to select everything. There might be actually be some more stuff. Yeah, it's going to bring in everything that's under that transform group. So all of my farm 2 stuff is going to come, but it's also going to bring like my pig confinement and some other buildings, and that's just because that's the stuff that's in this transform group. But just for the sake of this tutorial, let's say I want to bring all of this over. I can do the same thing. I can come up here to file, I can export selection with files. I'm going to want to make sure that I go back to my maps folder and find my import folder, so new models. I'm going to name it farm, select on farm. I'm going to come down here and name the i3D farm, save. It's going to bring up the box saying, do you want to get the parent directory? Yes. And depending on how many things you're bringing over, it could take a little while. Like you'll know when Giant starts responding again, that means it's done. So now I can come back to my new map. Let's just get somewhere out of the way. I'm going to go to file, import. It automatically brought up the last folder that we were in. I can select farm, and as you can see, it just added it to my transform group. And there's going to be objects all over because that transform group had objects in different places. But as you can see now, all of that farm that we were just looking at on the other map is right here, and so is my pig confinement, and so is some other things that came with it. So now I could actually move this entire transform group around. I would just have to find wherever the gizmo's at. And so what I'll typically do is I'll get somewhere where I can see the objects that I wanted to move, and I can also see the gizmo, and I can go up and down, I can go left and right, and I can move this entire thing. I'm moving everything on the map right now that's in that transform group. I'm moving it all around. Now if I wanted to just like move a shed, let's say I just want to move this shed, so I'm going to select it. That's going to be the outer wall, so I want to make sure that I'm clicking up here to the parent group, and I've got the entire shed selected. And now I can actually, it's kind of hard to see with all these lights lighting up, but you can actually now select the gizmo, and now I'm just moving this one object, and it does have some other things just because of the way that the map is set up. But now I can move this entire thing over there, place it where I want it, and then let's say, okay, well I don't really want all these lights to come with it. I can either delete these lights, or I can actually cut this out and save it into a new one, and I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. So is there any questions on that before I get into like cut and paste stuff? I'm just going to catch up on some messages here, make sure no one's got any messages. Again, if you guys have any questions, definitely ask me so we can work it through. I'm not going to get into any of the detailed stuff tonight just because I don't want to confuse anybody. But if you have anything that relates to just the simple how to use Giants Editor, go ahead and ask me, and we'll try to get it answered real quick. Can you delete parts of the file without causing a problem with importing it? And if the terrain is not the same level as the previous placement, how would you correct the building on the new terrain? So same thing like I just did. See how this stuff all showed up in the sky? That's because on the last map it was set at a different elevation. So I would just have to make sure everything that I wanted to move is selected, and then I can drag it wherever I want it, and either with the elevation I can move it left and right, forward and back, or that control B that I told you guys about, that's going to actually put it to whatever elevation I click on. So let's say I want to move this shed all the way over here without having to drag the little arrows. I'm going to hit Control B, and wherever I select the mouse, it's going to put it. But not only is it going to put it there, it's going to put it right on the ground level. And I can show you guys this because like over here, this is a little higher elevation. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit Control B, plop it here, and it's going to line it up with the elevation of the terrain below it. So that's one easy way to get it, but you're still going to want to come in here and fine tune it and make it exactly where you want it. So, you know, like say it pops in right here when you hit Control B, well, you're not going to be able to get a tractor or a vehicle up that little bump in the game. So I'm going to want to drag this down to where it's either just below the terrain or it's, you know, right up against it, and now I know that a tractor is going to be able to make it up that little ramp. Parker, I'll definitely message you here in a minute. I want to focus on everybody that's in the stream, but when the stream's over, I'll check out the message and talk to you. Justin, can you be a little more specific on deleting parts? I don't know exactly what you're asking there. And Todd, again, this is the basic tutorial, so I can definitely walk you through that later on, but I don't want to confuse people in this video because there are going to be people watching it later, and you know, so I don't want to get too far into it. That would take a lot more detailed issues. That's going to actually take some scripting and other things to make sure it works right. Mark, absolutely, man. Hopefully we're not going too far into it for you. That's why I wanted to just do a real basic one at first. And so I'm only going to do a couple more things and then we'll call it good for the night. But I did want to make sure, since we're talking about importing and exporting, that we also talk about transform groups and how to cut and paste. So what I'm going to actually do is get rid of this farm just so we can clear up our map a little bit. So I just selected it and deleted it. Now it's all gone. I want to go get rid of this second bridge that we did and go back to this bridge. Again, I'm going to hit the F key. It's going to bring me right to it. And I'll zoom out a little bit so we can actually see it. So, transform groups. Everything that's over here is called a transform group. So this would be the water planes transform group, the animals transform group, and so on. These are all transform groups. That's what we call the structure. If I click on this, these are the items that are in this transform group. So deck and bridge 148 feet, those are in the bridge 148 feet transform group. And that's why I can minimize this and shrink it down. Now obviously if I added 100 bridge 148 feet in this main level of my transform group, by the time I get done with a map, this list is going to be 1,000,000 items long and you're never going to be able to find anything. So what you typically are going to want to do is use a structure, and you can do whatever you want, but what I typically do is I have everything in different transform groups. So let's say I want to create a new transform group that all of my buildings are going to go into. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to go up to create transform group up here on the top, create transform group. It's going to bring in a new transform group down here, and it's just going to call it transform. So that brought this right here. Now if I want to change the name of this, I have to do it over here on my attributes screen on the right hand side of the screen. So if I highlight bridge, it's going to say bridge 148 feet here. If I highlight transform, it's going to say transform. Now I can click in this box and I can type whatever I want. So let's say this is the transform that we're going to put all of our buildings into. I'm going to name this buildings, and then I'm going to hit tab, and that just gets me out of that box, and it also will update this new name. So now it's called buildings. So let's say that the bridge, oops, sorry, wrong button. Let's say that the bridge and the sign that we uploaded or that we imported from this other map, we want to put these into the buildings transform group just to organize our scenograph a little better. But let's take it a step further and say that we actually want this sign to be in the same transform group as this building, because this sign is actually a sign that needs to go with this building. So we can actually do this a couple different ways. I'm going to select the sign and I'm going to import it into this transform group. So I've got the sign selected, it's selected up here, I'm going to do edit, cut. It's going to disappear. It's no longer on my scenograph, and it's no longer anywhere on the map. Now I want to either select my bridge. I can click on it here, or I can come up to the scenograph, select bridge, and now I'm going to hit edit, paste, and it's going to bring my sign now in here under the bridge transform group. Now sometimes it'll move it around, like right now it moved it way up here. That's fine. We can now place it wherever we want. So let's say this is a sign that goes with the bridge. I just hit Control B, brought it down here, and let's just say that we want it to be placed right here with the bridge. Now if I click on my bridge 148 transform group, see how they both are now highlighted? And now if I move, as long as this parent object is selected, they'll all move together. So like if you were doing a farm or a downtown area and you wanted all of the objects to be under that one transform group, you could name this downtown, put all of your downtown objects into that transform group by pasting them, and they're all going to be in one transform group. They're all still selectable underneath it, and you can even take a step further and say the sign transform group now is even further down, the pole and the sign, but they're still here. I can still select on them all individually, or I can select them as a whole. But now let's take it a step further and say, okay, I want to put my bridge 148 transform group, and I want to put that in my buildings transform group. Whenever I create a new transform group, this building one, the gizmo should set to 0, 0, 0. Over here it says 0, 0, 0. This means that it's at the exact center of the map. So the exact center of the map is actually way down here below ground. Now you want to leave that number. You don't have to, but you definitely, for the sake of this tutorial, you want to leave it. So let's say I want to move my bridge and sign into my buildings transform group. It's pretty simple, just like we did the sign. I'm going to select this new transform group, the bridge. It has the sign and the bridge in it. I'm going to go to edit, cut, click on buildings, edit, paste, and it popped it right back where I wanted it because I left it at 0, 0, 0, the buildings transform group. So now if I wanted to bring in another bridge 148, let's duplicate this just for the sake of the tutorial. So now we have two different bridge 148s with a sign. So now let's move that bridge back over here where we had it earlier. We're going to hit Control B. You can see I have a sign with it now. So let's say we want to bring this over here and leave it. I still have my old bridge, now I have my new bridge, but when I select buildings, they're both going to be highlighted because they're both in that buildings transform group. The squad, hey man, just wanted to stop by and say thank you for the awesome map. It's amazing. Hey, no problem, man. I actually watched your guys' video last night. It was kind of a kick to watch you guys on it. So glad you enjoyed it. I didn't realize you were from Iowa, so that's awesome. Todd, no, after the transform group, like the sign was up in the air, can you still hit Control B to find it and bring it back to where you want it? Yes. So when the sign was up in the air, let's just simulate it. If it loaded up way up here when you brought it into that new transform group, it brought it up here in the sky. I can still hit Control B, as long as it's all highlighted. I can hit Control B and click wherever I want it, and it's going to put it. I'm just dragging my mouse because I'm still holding it down. But if I hit Control B and click, it's going to click it wherever I click it. It's still going to be within this second transform group. See, when I highlight the parent one, they're still both going to be in here, but I can move this thing around individually wherever I want to put it. And now I can come up here. They're both highlighted now because they're still both in that same transform group. AJ, hey, what's going on, man? Hey squad, you were really excited. Yeah, he was definitely excited about it. I was glad to see that. Is there a link to your Facebook? Just found out about your map and it looks amazing. Keep up the great work. Beanie, it's actually the UMRV Facebook page. I don't have the link for you, but if you just search Facebook, you can actually just search at DR Mod Map. So it's DRMODMAP, it'll bring you right to it, but it's the FS17 UMRV map. And actually, Lee, if you're still watching, man, would you be willing to throw a link in here for the Facebook and for the PayPal, just on the pinned post? That would be awesome, man. Yep, definitely. Alright, so we're getting to that hour mark. We talked about unzipping the files, opening the i3Ds, moving around the map itself. We talked about the nav speed down at the bottom and how to speed up your moving objects, and we talked about Control B. We talked about scaling the objects, and you can actually scale the entire transform groups too. So if I select bridge 148, I have the sign and the bridge. I can still go over here to my scaling and I can scale it all as one. Now you wouldn't really ever want to do this because it's so finicky, but you could if you wanted to. You can actually scale the whole thing. The other way, I could also come over here and scale it. So let's say I want to make this twice as big as it is. I can come over here, and instead of 1, I'm going to double the value, so it's going to be 2. And now I just scaled the entire transform group and I made it twice as large. I can come back in here, reset it back down to 1, and it brings it back to the original scale. Carolina, what's up? I don't think Lee must not be listening anymore. That's cool, but yeah, definitely, guys. I think that's really it for the general moving stuff around. At least this will give you some time to play around and export and import some objects from other maps and get it figured out, and you know how to move around and stuff like that. We talked a little bit about organizing the scenograph, but as you can see, see all these different things I have in here now. This scenograph would fill up really quickly. So that's why it's really key to put everything into its own groups. So typically what I'll have on my maps, like you can actually see, I'll open up my old map to show you guys. So if I close all these down right now, a lot of them are open. So if I close these all down, you're going to see that with the exception of these items right here that are blue, everything's in its own transform group. So like later on, if I want to go to my cities or all of my farms, they're actually in places. So when I select places in the transform group or in the scenograph, it actually highlights every single thing in my map that's a building or something that would be in a city or a farm. But if I, even within my places group, now I have an even more organized structure. So I have everything that's in the city of McGregor. If I select that, it's going to just highlight those things. Or if I want to go to Farm 1, it's got everything in Farm 1, which is actually over here. So I could actually move Farm 1 if I wanted to. I could move it, everything in that transform group. I can move it around. And this makes it so much easier later on. You want to be careful that you do this from the very beginning, that you organize everything into its own structure, because if you don't, if I can just kind of show you, if you get all of these open, this is what the scenograph would look like if I didn't have organized all this stuff. I mean, you could be scrolling through this thing for days trying to find what you're looking for. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. So that's why it's so important to organize everything. And you can name it whatever you want. It's not going to matter. I could have, you know, any transform group up here. I could organize it however I want. Justin, I do have a PayPal link. It's actually on the Facebook page. If you go to the pinned post where the downloads are for the map, there's a link for a PayPal account there. You know, if you guys are feeling generous, definitely. But you know, I'm not one of those people that does this for the money. I do it just to help you guys out. So anything you guys do donate there, it's going to go towards models and things like that, so we can make these maps even better. Because we are working on multiple maps right now. We're not just working on UMRV. We want to get some other maps out to you guys. So definitely check it out on the Facebook page. And it's at the very top post. You'll be able to find it. So is there any other questions before we end this first tutorial, the 101 class? From here on out, basically, I think the format I'm going to do these videos at, guys, is I'll do some live streams so you guys can ask questions, and then I'll do some where they'll just be recorded videos and you can go check them out on your own time. All of the live streams you're obviously going to be able to watch again, and that's why I'm trying to keep it down to like an hour, so that people don't have to sit there and watch through, you know, 3-hour videos. But we will definitely be doing more of these. This was just the general how to use Giants, how to get things moved around, how to import, export. But what I'm going to do with this map here, this new map project, I'm actually going to walk you guys through this map as we build it. So right now you can kind of see it is very bare bones. I just have some rivers. I do have the terrain laid out. It's kind of hard to see, but if you get way down in here and look around, you can actually see that the hills are all in. But I will walk you guys through how to make a map from square one, starting at a blank canvas, and how we're going to get roads put in and rivers put in, and how do we mess with terrain. And we're actually going to build this map together. So you guys are going to see it come alive, and then we'll have it ready for upload at the end, and you guys will kind of feel like you were part of it through the beginning, and hopefully it'll help you learn how to map yourselves. Mark, absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. Dirty, yeah, awesome. I'm glad you guys are excited about it, and I am too. It'll be kind of fun to watch this map come together. Country, this one really hasn't been established yet exactly where it's from, but it'll be kind of like this map right here will be more of like a Midwestern, just kind of rolling hills, some creeks running through it, that kind of thing. Alex, the new map, the new UMRV map will be uploaded here in a couple days. We're just fixing some last minute things for you guys. Caleb, definitely glad you think it's sweet, man. Hopefully I can teach you guys what I know. Again, I'm no expert at this, and there's still things that I'm learning about Giants Editor. I am, by far not an expert at this, but I figured I might as well show you guys what I know. And the things I show you, they may not be the best way, but it's the way I know how to do it. So alright guys, well definitely, if you haven't subscribed to the page or to the YouTube, please do. This is where all the videos are going to be. If you haven't liked me on Facebook, definitely go to that UMRV page and like the Facebook page, so you guys can follow up with the progress. And we'll definitely be doing more of these. Alex, the download's actually down right now until we get some other features put in. So it'll be up in the next couple days. You guys will be able to start downloading it again. Chris, when the new uneventful map is released, will all the extras need to be re-downloaded, or will those stay the same? For the most part, they'll stay the same. There is an update for the bin pack. There'll be some changes made to that, and there'll be a new link for that one coming up, but it's nothing major. But the mods and stuff will still be the same. Yeah, Justin, definitely. And this is only one of the new maps. This isn't the only one. There's other maps that me and the other guys are working on, so definitely check them out as well. If you haven't liked Rednex modding, it's REDNEX. If you haven't checked that out, go to Facebook, check them out. That's Bart Manning's his page on Facebook. Roger Stanley, his Facebook is, I'll say it's basically RHRS, but I think that's set to private right now. But he has done a lot of work on maps in Farm Sim, and he works with me on these maps, so he definitely deserves some credit. If you guys are looking at some other streams to watch, Deverkins22 on Twitch, he's got some good streams of the UMRV map. Blitz Battalion Gaming on YouTube, they have some good streams of the map, as well as a lot of other people. So if you want to check those guys out, definitely check them out. Alex, how do we build mods and where? Well, hopefully we'll show you how to at least build maps with these tutorials. But if there's any other questions about the actual Giants Editor, I'm gonna go ahead and we'll call it good for the night, and we'll start over. I'm looking at probably doing the majority of my videos will be released on Friday nights, so it's either going to be a stream or it'll be a recorded video that you guys can watch. I'll try to keep them up to date weekly so that we have at least a weekly tutorial. Fridays seem to be the best nights for people. They're off work, they usually don't have too much going on, but even if you can't make the live stream, you can always rewatch it later, so they'll always be on my YouTube account. So again guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all next time. If you have any questions about this specific tutorial, send me a message on YouTube or on Facebook, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Until then, later.